The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and up. You believe in how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Nahaja Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I hope that you are doing well, that you are taking care of yourself, that you are living your best life. Listen, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The big news, of course, is that the one and only Stevie Gardner has won gold, ladies and gentlemen. There is no other thing, nothing else that's of note to say. Stevie Gardner won gold. The Bahamas was highlighted today. The Bahamas looked good this morning. Well, last night in Tokyo, right? Last night in Tokyo. This morning for us. Or was it? No, it was tonight for them. Tonight for them. I think that's how it goes. I can't remember. Too much time difference. But exciting stuff. Stevie Gardner won gold in his 4x4, 400-meter race. Sorry, I watched the women's 4x4 race. It was not our finest performance, but kudos to the women for even attempting. Knowing some of them, this was not their race. We know that there were some challenges with Breanne Taylor. Breanne, sorry, not Taylor. I think it's Bethel. And so, you know, I'm happy that they showed up. We did not do well. Anthony Strawn was the final leg. I don't think we finished that race, but nonetheless, the big news is, of course, today, Stevie Gardner did the business, y'all. So that's exciting. We won gold. I got a lot of stuff to talk about first, but we got to go back in memory lane. For those who didn't get a chance to watch it, you haven't seen it, right? You missed it. I think it's best that we get to that point where we just show you, and you can hear. If you missed it this morning, it was 8 a.m., Shawnee runs Friday morning, 8-ish, in her 400-meter heat. By the way, for those who have been watching the Olympics, right, you can tell the difference between Shawnee's performance in the 2 versus Shawnee's performance in the 4. In the 200 meters, she never won a heat. Not one of her heats she won. In the 400, though, she's showing her dominance and running the daylights out of that race. So shout out. I'm very excited about it. Shawnee took home silver in Doha. And we do know that that athlete, Nahaja, is not running this Olympics because she had failed to do her, the doping tests. Well, they don't call it doping tests, blood tests, right? 4 missed tests, but they still allowed her to run in the Worlds, which shouldn't have happened at all. And listen, many of us were surprised that she came out of nowhere to win and to beat our girl, Shawnee Miller-Weibo. But now Shawnee is in the 400 meters. She's won every heat with margin. And it's the same way that Stevie showed up in his heat. And this is one of those things, that domination. And I'm so proud of us, y'all. Like, y'all don't even understand. But Stevie Gardner has been doing this all season. And he has not, he's not been shy about doing this. He's not been shy about showing us that, hey, I am Stevie Gardner. Hear me roar. Shout out also to Solo, who by this afternoon already has a song, right? And that brother works and he comes up with songs. So that's so cool. But Stevie Gardner this morning, ladies and gentlemen, did what we all knew he could do, which was take us home. This is the race this morning, Stevie Gardner.
Kirani James, after his silver in Rio, battled grave disease. He finds himself here with an opportunity for a second Olympic gold. And there's your race favorite, Stevie Gardner of the Bahamas. Gardner's in 7. James in 4. Jamaica. Chris Taylor in 9. Off they go. Fast start for Kirani James. Sherry goes up quickly on Stephen Gardner, who doesn't run that fast for the first 100 meters. Kirani James running well. Michael Norman in lane 8 for the USA, traveling beautifully. Kirani's coming up. Stephen Gardner begins to quicken. It is Cherry, Gardner, and Kirani James, the men that are in front at the moment. Michael Norman is there. Kirani James surges forward to challenge Stephen Gardner. Gardner and James. Gardner out front. James is in second spot. The Bahamian is pulling clear. What a run by Stephen Gardner, the world champion, now the Olympic champion, 43.85. And for the second time in 3 Olympic Games, it's the Caribbean gold.
Woo!
Stephen Gardner came in as the favorite,
Lord.
and he's delivered brilliantly.
I'm telling you.
Effort from Kirani James and may have held on for his 3rd Olympic medal. Anthony Zambrano, always a fast finisher. And he came through well with James holding on to bronze. He now knows it. The Americans shut out of the medals at 400 meters.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, this was one of the best. I mean, just to see it, just to see Stevie those go and Stevie do it the way he did was so exciting and refreshing. Stephen Gardner, congratulations from all of us here at home. Hopefully, I've already spoken to folks on the ground there in Tokyo, so hopefully tomorrow we will have Stevie on the show. Hope all fingers crossed that happens. But it's so proud. And, you know, when you know these athletes put in so much and they do so much for their country, it's just very exciting that they get an opportunity to show it on the world's biggest stage. There's no bigger stage. We can go back to Tonique, right? We can go back to Tonique Williams-Darling back in the day when Tonique was on, when she ran in the world. And then she also came and ran in the, in the Olympics, winning that medal. That is exciting stuff there, right? Like just huge on what was done and what can be done. And then we saw Pauline Davis. We've seen, Debbie Ferguson, so many of our athletes. Ramon Miller finishing strong for the men's 4x1, doing an historic feat by running the men's 4x100 meter relay. Listen, it's exciting. I'm super proud of what we have accomplished as a country for us being so small. It's an exciting time. I'm telling you guys, it's really, really exciting. Kudos to the one and only Stevie Gardner on having an exceptional race for all of us at home to have something to celebrate in the midst of COVID, because yesterday was a day that was not a great day in terms of news. You guys know that I have quite a bit of guests who joined me on this show, especially since COVID has happened, since everything was locked down last year. The show has gone. I have found myself doing more of the show online versus in studio. And that is because of necessity. And I've had so many guests on the show, but yesterday I got word, and we're going to take a break in a minute. I got word that 2 of my guests, 2 regular guests on the show, were in the hospital due to COVID. Of course, you all know Wayne Monroe was just on last week. He is in the hospital due to COVID, and found out yesterday that a fan favorite of ours here at the Hit Back, the one and only Dr. Susan Williams Cartwright, is also in hospital now with COVID. And you know that she has been fighting this thing on the front line as well. So please keep her and all of her family in your prayers, because that is why, you know, when folks are working for us, working to help us move forward, it is important that we keep them in prayer, knowing that they are risking themselves to help us. So that's a major thing there, of course. So please keep them all in prayer. We have Wayne and everyone else. There's a lot of families who are going through right now, a lot of families who are going through, and the issues of the clusters and this virus in itself, and how contagious it is and how it's affecting lives, it's a big deal. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by a special guest. And before I go, I just want to say, one of the things that, has come to mind this entire process, and especially watching Stevie do such a wonderful thing in his race, what has come to mind, and seeing our athletes abroad and knowing that they're in a place where Tokyo is raging, Cuba is raging, all over the world, there is this uptick. And we kind of watched it come our way. There is no greater time in history where we must love each other and be our brother's keeper, right? Like no other time. Where we have to check on each other's mental health. That's so important. Are we checking on someone's mental health? One of the things that was shared with me today was that of it all and through it all, the biggest toll that this has taken, they believe, is just that there's so much trauma to your income, trauma to your family, trauma to your financial stability, trauma in marriages. There's so much things that Dorian and COVID have caused us as a country. And it has proven to us some truths that we wish were untrue, that the foundation we've built on economically is fragile. So we must, if at the risk of human lives, try to hold this thing up. And that's where the sadness is that we're trying to hold up a foundation or a house that's on shaky foundation. And we're using energy. We're using emotional intelligence to figure out how to keep something up that is built on a shaky model. And that is stressful. Our healthcare has been exposed, as we've always known, as shaky. Our economy is being exposed as what we've always known as shaky because it's not diversified. Our educational system definitely revealed as shaky. Once one trauma comes, children are not showing up to school, at graduation rates are plummeting even more. The entire system must be revisited. The entire context of what we are as a country must be revisited so that we can even have the answer to the question of how many more great athletes in a country so small can come out of this place, in a place where we don't really invest in sports. Sports happens to us. We don't happen to it. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have special guest, Dr. Linwood Brown will be joining us, talking about, from his position, why those persons who have had COVID should be in a different space than those who haven't when it comes to the vaccine. Then we're going to have joining us a new candidate, fresh out of the Free National Movement candidate, and B3A's president, Trimiko Watch, will be joining us. And then at the end, coming to the end of the show, Matt Aubrey from ORG, the Organization for Responsible Government. We talk about this new report about corruption in the country and how we have the form of godliness but deny the power thereof. That's me paraphrasing. You're listening to The Hit Back. We'll be back right after this.
Someone give me a big shirt with say Steven on it. Gold. Steven had to come there and dog up the tracks. You're on, you're making fun of people's shirt. Yeah, Steven say vehement aerodynamics. Everybody getting their food eat. Big shirt went, so talk that. Steven show the world what he work. They laugh at him, say he got a big shirt. Steven say y'all go remember this. Now Steven is a real gold medalist. Take that. Steven ran the race come first. When they saw that, all them out boys. Steven say y'all go remember this. Now Steven is a real gold medalist. And they're off 2 for 2 off the blocks. Baby, let's go. Say he got a big shirt, but the speed no shirt can stop. Boy, he's staying focused, cause he know this going on TikTok. One shot. He got to win this because the prayer warriors unlock. Boy, almost there. You can feel the adrenaline. Almost there. All kind of blood pumping. Almost there. Boy, Steven, you got this.
Let's go, Stevie.
Almost there. Now he's a gold medalist. Don't forget, what's the lesson? Never lose hope. Never, ever give in. Never. What's the blessing? You can win if you keep on pushing.
Real.
What's the blessing? Never lose hope because you are a winner within.
Alright then.
What's the lesson? Block all the critics, I learned that from Steven. Steven from Mabuko, if you didn't know.
He's from Mabuko, Chad.
You have to put on a show to show them just how it goes. You thought he was coming second, oh that's a no-no.
No.
He had his mind focused on getting nothing but gold. Steven showed the world what he worth. They laugh at him, say he got a big shirt. Steven, so y'all go remember this. Now Steven is a real gold medalist. Steven ran the race come first. When they saw that, all them out boys. Steven, so y'all go remember this. Now Steven is a real gold medalist. When I say Steven get, y'all say gold. Steven get gold. Steven get gold. When I say Steven get, y'all say gold. Steven get gold. Steven get gold. When I say Steven get, y'all say gold. Steven get gold. Steven get gold. When I say Steven get, y'all say gold. Steven get gold. Steven get gold.
That one name over.
Insurance and Prudential Loss Adjusters.
First look at our afternoon traffic now, and it's slow across the island. Inner city streets, they're a bit busy, as we can see along streets like Wolf Road, Mackey Street, and on East Street between Wolf and Robinson Road. The southern corridors off Robinson Road, both East Street and Little Road, have short bumper-to-bumper traffic flow going on into the roundabouts ahead, and then that's it. Once you clear the roundabouts, the ride frees up heading south. So heading along East Street in the south, hassle-free ride. Getting over the hill on Blue Hill Road, once clear of the roundabout there, at Tony's Million Dollar, and the ride there is also hassle-free, no congestion. The good ride continues all the way into the Carmichael Road and Blue Hill Road intersection, and then going along Carmichael Road, we've got another hassle-free ride. Minor traffic delays along that route. Same look is happening over Glassy Road and Samala Highway. Hassle-free rides, no congestion or delays in that area to talk about. In fact, in this hour for the afternoon traffic, still a low average traffic moving about, and we've got no real congestions or delays to advise you of that may affect your ride at this point. We'll be watching within the next hour to see if there's an upturn in traffic that you need to know about that may affect your ride in some way. This National Traffic Report is a service of J.S. Johnson, the only insurance agent and brokers giving you peace of mind in the Bahamas for over 100 years. You can check out J.S. Johnson Online Service Center app. There you're able to view their policy details. Check out standing balances, report a claim, and more. Sign up today at jsjohnsononline.com. With your rider sky look at traffic in real time, I'm PAAA.
Beulah gal, can you believe this? We are now the patrol queens of the neighborhood.
We now large and in charge. So we need to check out what's going on in everybody's yard. What about that gun that we know that Junior and his homeboys just ran out? Can we report that too?
Of course we can.
But we could be in deep trouble if they find out.
We need to report what we see, Beulah. When you call Crime Stoppers, they just answer your call in Miami.
So then we can report everything? Guns, where they hiding the drugs, who shoot who part of which gang, or who disturbing the peace with the loud music and the motorcycles.
Then our neighborhood will be the best in the Bahamas, and everybody gonna want to come live here. And then our house price will go up, gal.
So what we waiting on? What's the number?
If you see something, say something. Let us all pitch in and stop the crime before it's your time. Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands. Or text us through the Crack Crime Bahamas app. Stop the crime before it's your time.
Enjoy an elevated mobile experience with BTC, giving you
unlimited talk for the best conversations, unlimited data for all your online fun,
and unlimited roaming to stay connected while overseas.
For just $50 per line.
Unlock unlimited mobile talk, data, and roaming when you sign up for BTC Superfast Fiber Internet with speed starting at 100 megabits per second. Enjoy more great savings and value. Upgrade or sign up today. Visit any BTC store or BTCBahamas.com. Conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's a hit back with Nahaja Black. It's a hit back with Nahaja Black. It's a hit back with Nahaja Black. It's a hit back with Nahaja Black.
Today, I got a lot of show. I got a good show for you today. I got my good friend, first time guest on the show, friend of mine. I guess we could even say colleague at one point. Not in that field, but we worked together on a project before. I want to welcome onto the show with us, good friend Dr. Linwood Brown. Doc, how are you? Unmute your mic for me real quick. How you doing?
I am fantastic, Nahaja. How are you doing?
I'm well.
Good, excellent, excellent.
Listen, first of all, I hope that you're safe. I know you're working and trying your best to be, COVID safe. Thank you so much for doing what you have to do in this period, nonetheless, right? So Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome, and just doing what I'm trained to do.
Yeah, man, and you know what? It's appreciated. So, okay, my good friend, you had a thought process, and I love it. I love what you said and you shared with me, and just in terms of a different thinking or thought process on this whole thing with COVID-19. Obviously, you're on the front line. You're seeing some of what is happening. I think the first question I should ask you is it as bad as we think? Is it worse? Are we being hyperbolic? Where is COVID-19 on the ground for physicians?
Nahaja, it is bad. It's worse than we think. We are comfortable, a bit too comfortable with the COVID pandemic in the Bahamas, but it is not good. We are seeing an uptick in cases. To be a multiple of factors that causes uptick, but nonetheless, we've seen an uptick in COVID cases, and we have seen an uptick in hospitalizations. One of the hospitals is nursing patients in the ER as admitted patients. Patients in the ER at one of our hospitals are intubated. The ICUs of these hospitals are overwhelmed and inundated with patients. So yes, it is a lot worse than we think. I believe we have the pseudo protective measures going on in our minds that it's not that bad, but it is really, really, really bad. And as a physician in the field, I'm currently managing many patients at home who are not sick enough.
All right, we're having some technical issues there with Dr. Brown. Linwood, we're having some technical issues with you, Linwood. So I need you to get into a good cell spot for me. A good. All right, there you go. That's better.
I think I am. I think I'm back. My apologies. Yeah, but I was to pick up from where I left off. It is not good. I think Bahamians need to be more careful and be more vigilant and take this thing seriously and protect themselves and their families.
One of the things that, I think where folks are not towing the line, but balancing this line, walking this line. And I think it's a sad state where we have to make these sort of choices, right? Just let me know, Linwood, if you're still there, because I think you're kind of frozen a bit. You're still with me. Okay,
I'm still there.
Good. So one of the areas where folks are trying to find the balance is we have to eat, we have to work. I'm going to brave this thing, but we cannot afford to lock down. We can't afford to stop commerce because we have to eat. I understand that, I understand that. And to me, that is a sad reality that a lot of folks are having to say, I'll take the risk. If something happens to me, it happens to me, but we can't afford to lock down. With that in mind, how do people stay safe? How do you recommend that folks try their best to stay safe from what you've seen?
Well, the emergency orders and the COVID protocols is a good place to start. Social distance, man. This new variant, which is upon our shores or shortly will be on our shores, is very, very infectious, very, very contagious, very virulent. We have thought that it was more contagious but less virulent. Now we know that it's both. It is contagious and virulent.
What does virulent mean?
Virulent is how bad it is. What damages it can do once it infects the person. Infectious is mean the ability to spread, of course. So this particular variant, the Delta variant, and now we know the Lambda variant is seen on a parts of the United States. But this Delta thing, man, this thing, the exposure time is cut in half before you can become infected. So an elevator ride, one floor on elevator ride with somebody who has COVID can be spread to you. So to stay safe. So social distance, wear your mask. I'm advising double up on masks now. I'm advising almost paranoid, like hand sanitization, keep your hands clean, surface clean. And if you can't avoid large gatherings, don't go. It's not that important, eh? I mean, don't go. Do as much things virtually as you possibly can. I understand the need for commerce. I understand the needs for economic survival, but there's also a strong need, and that's self-preservation. And so we need to preserve ourselves so we could tomorrow go and work, right? Tomorrow live. Let's live to tomorrow. Too many of our Bahamians have been hospitalized and for this thing called COVID, and too many have died. But there is a solution, and I believe the solution is strict adherence to protocol and keeping your immune system up. We'll talk about vaccines later in the show. I'm sure you want to get to that, and that's topical, and I have my own opinions about it. Not necessarily bad opinions, but my own opinions nonetheless.
Yeah, well, let's get to it because I think, that's a big part of the conversation when we talk about COVID-19. What are the options for it? One of my good friends and physician, friend of the show, like I said, she is now in the hospital with COVID-19, doing what you do. That's why, Linwood, you got to stay safe. Y'all got to stay safe. I'm checking up on all my friends, nurses, doctors, porters, everybody. Please stay safe because we need you guys.
Your friend you're referring to, I was a doctor. I cared for at home. Man.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's yeah. And to me, that's where my concern was. And you saw it coming, You knew that at some point with all of these patients that you're seeing, there got to be a breakthrough moment. But, it is sadly
unavoidable. Yeah. I mean, we can be as careful as we want as long as we're doing with patient care and the type of medicine we practice where we do concierge or house calls. We're in the environment where somebody who has had COVID been for the last 24 hours is breathing in and out. Because most people, let's face it, most people don't wear masks at home.
No.
And that's their safe zone as far as they're concerned. And rightfully so. Mm-hmm. So now here I am, a doctor. You call me because you're not feeling well. I go in this environment where you've been breathing for the last 2 days without mask. And so it is everywhere. The particles are perhaps everywhere, even though it's considered a grounded virus, but yet still you're breathing actively. And now I'm here to see you. So it's very possible and highly likely that if you keep seeing these type of patients, you will get COVID. Unfortunately for me, I had COVID October of last year, before the onset of the vaccines, and still got good, strong antibody response, thank God. And I was careful. I mean, talking about PPEs, gloves, masks, etc. I believe I caught it through my eyes, actually, because I didn't wear goggles, right? I didn't wear goggles, but I was almost paranoid with the mask situation, but I got it nonetheless. I recovered, thank God. And a lot of my colleagues are now down with COVID. So, yeah, take it seriously, folks. It's real.
This is what we're seeing, and we'll discuss the vaccine after the break, Linwood, if you don't mind. Dr. Linwood Brown joining us. What we're seeing is a lot younger people now, whereas when we first were talking about this virus, as you're getting to know this COVID-19 virus, young people were seemingly immune, and kids. Right now we have Florida talking about tens of thousands of kids infected. We know personally here, children were coming to school infected, causing schools to close again. Yeah. And we're seeing young people, 26, 34, passing away from COVID-19. Yep. It's no longer an age thing. That's what we've realized.
Right.
Why? What happened?
Well, like I said, this new variant is that contagious and it's non-discriminatory. It affects all age groups, all socioeconomic classes, all races, all sexes. So it is non-discriminatory. Kids are now getting it. Unfortunately, the mortality rate in kids doesn't equal that in older folks, not yet at least. And we want to keep it that way, right? Kids are the future. No pun intended. Don't mean to sound cliched, but they are. But they're still getting sick, and a lot of it has to do with COVID fatigue. People are letting their guards down a bit. It's been around 18 months almost, People tired of the social distance, tired of not being able to hug your relative. They're tired of not being a part of why we are having such an uptick now. This is 18 months. 18 months of this particular Howard Hughes type behavior is causing people to just feel tired, feel tired of it and say, hey, what the heck? Let me just get it and get it over with. Some people are even saying that. And some people saying, listen, I can continue my immune system therapy and do my prophylaxis, et cetera. But people are genuinely have cold fatigue, have emergency powers fatigue, lockdown fatigue. So they are willing to risk it all, so to speak, to just live normally, pre-COVID normal,
Yeah. Dr. Linwood Brown joining us. Now, with all that is said, right, people making choices. We're making choices. We have to make certain choices, right? That's how life is, and that's the situation that's presented to us. There's this major choice of the vaccine, right? Take it or not to take it. There are a lot of folks who've had COVID-19. You're saying, listen, I'm not taking it anymore. I've got antibodies. Then you have others who are saying, well, I've had it or I've seen someone have it. I'm going to rush to get it because I've not be vaccinated, but who have fallen ill, right? I wonder, because of the limit of vaccines, should there be people we recommend get vaccines versus others? Or should everybody get it?
Well, I'm of the belief, this is me speaking, not the Ministry of Health, not anybody else's, Linwood Brown's point of view. So far, we have 16,000 Bahamians who have had COVID, right? We have a scarcity of vaccines. We know that persons who have had COVID have some immunity. We know that this immunity may be even better than the immunity the vaccine brings about. We also know that this immunity may last even longer. So far, we have seen studies where the vaccine, with the immunity from the infection, lasts up to 12, the 14 months. That's the window so far of infected persons who've had COVID. Right. We know the vaccine wanes. We know that the vaccine antibody wanes. So right now, persons who have had COVID have a good immunity. So if it was me rolling out this program, I would prioritize persons who have not had COVID infection to be vaccinated first, those who want it, that is, and those who have had COVID, because they have some level of protection, should not have to take the vaccine, and they should be granted special, like how persons who have COVID vaccination cards, they should be granted some type of card to know that they have had COVID and survived COVID. I think it is asking a bit much for somebody to have survived COVID, then I'll go back and take the vaccine and get another set of symptoms, because some people get a little symptoms from COVID vaccine and not be able to participate in the economy because they didn't get the vaccine. I think these persons should get some form of letter stating, hey, I had COVID, I have some immunity, I have some protection, just as persons who have had the vaccine get a card to say I'm fully vaccinated, and save those precious vaccines for persons who want them who have not had COVID virus.
Well, that would only be those persons, though. Even in that, there's a few questions. I like this topic, and I want to dive a little deeper in it. We should take a break. But as a point, before we take the break, there's a question there. With persons who have, because 16,000 is what we know of, right? 16,000 is who we know, right? There are tons of folks who've taken antigen tests or who probably know they've had COVID, but, and these aren't recorded in the number. So it would only be those persons you would recommend who are on the list, the public health list.
Right.
Yeah. And then you have to ask the question of, well, let's talk some more on the other side of the break. I like that idea, mind you. My question would be, would a dose of the vaccine be a booster to it or just unnecessary? Hold that thought. We'll be back after this. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja, Black Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. My friend Dr. Linwood Brown joining us. We'll be back after this.
Looking for a roomy SUV that's affordable? Take a look at the new Chevrolet Traverse. It seats up to 8 and is ranked best in class for cargo space. Its spacious interior design offers the latest features to keep you and your family entertained. What's more, you'll get up to a 5-year, 100,000-kilometer factory warranty along with Chevrolet's superior engineering and safety record. So, test drive the new Chevrolet Traverse today at Nassau Motor Company on Shirley Street, where standards are higher.
When I had got prostate cancer, my family didn't know if I was going to live. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, within days, I got an appointment. They presented me with treatment options, and we set up a robotic prostatectomy. When my scans came back, there are no signs of cancer. They don't see you as a number, they see you as a part of the family. I'm going on with my life. That's a real gift.
Call us at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
At a time when jobs are hard to find, crime is a concern, and Bahamians are uncertain about the future of the country, there is one paper you can rely on as your source of news and commentary. The Nassau Guardian delves deeper into the issues. We ask the tough questions. We tell your stories. If you haven't already, pick up a copy today. The Nassau Guardian. News and views that matter since 1844.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja, Black Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We've got joining us a good friend, Dr. Linwood Brown. Doc, welcome back. Thank you so much for the time on the show. So then let's talk about it. Let's talk about the vaccine and your theory that, hey, listen, we are, there's a lot of us who have had COVID-19, recovered from COVID-19. Perhaps the strategy should be that we don't, those who, who've had it, don't need to take the vaccine, and others who, I'm sure those with these serious comorbidities, be the first in line if they wish, right? I gather that's where you're thinking, eh?
That's what I'm thinking, yes.
How, one of the things that I thought was concerning, right, and interesting, was that we saw the Ministry of Health come up with a circular yesterday, kind of confirming that there was indeed a, the incident that happened at the convention center, the convention. They didn't say that it happened, but they said that these things have happened. They've heard of clusters and these sort of things, right? How does a virus like this move, right? How does it move? Of course, we move it, but the Delta seems to be different, right? It seems to be far more aggressive.
Yeah. Like any other respiratory virus, it's moved via respiratory droplets. And you're in a crowded room, your spacing is going to be compromised. You're not going to be able to be 6 feet apart comfortably. And your people are talking, people are wearing masks, they're talking, and other persons are in their space. Virus up in the air, it lingers for some time. It doesn't just drop to the ground. So it lingers for some time, and you walk in that space, and everybody walk in that space, and they're passing it on and getting and passing it on throughout the day. And when they go home, they feel okay. And in 3-4 days, they feel a little sniffles, and some people just get diarrhea, especially with the Delta variant. And then in 4 or 5 days, they have full-blown illness. 10 days they're worse, and so on and so forth. Those who get symptoms, some don't even have symptoms. They go back to work Monday in the workspace and they get a little comfortable. They go on the lunchroom to eat. They take off their mask to eat, and then boom, their colleague is now a contact, and so on and so forth. The colleague goes home and takes it to their home, and basic domino effect that we see with most respiratory viruses. And this is why the protocols were put in place for limited amount of persons in a specific size space at the same time. And that is what the government recognized from our epidemiologists, from our infectious control teams, to recognize that this is how this thing is spread. These are the necessary precautions to minimize spread, but people just want to do what they want to do.
As a health professional, because I figured that there are certain points. Like in Canada, they had these things, these levels, right? At every level, after a certain line is crossed, a trigger is pulled. And so it's level 1, level 2, 3, 4, 5 is the big code red for them, like when we lock everything down. I don't think anyone can tell you when the triggers are, what the triggers are for us. That's just a whole other story of what are the triggers. When does this thing get pulled? Like, we don't know. So there's no expectation of it. We just sit very much in a panic and, freaking out of, hey, will this level get pulled? Will this happen? We just don't know how this works. But, and so with that said, right, and if you're just tuning in, Dr. Linwood Brown joining us on the show, with that said, where my concern is for the healthcare system, like when we get to a place where it's overrun, when we have people on the porch and we're upset that folks are on the porch, and I've had family members on that same porch. I know about that, like loved ones. I'm talking about distant relatives. I'm talking about, scary. Yeah, scary. So I know what it is for folks to be on the porch, and when there's no room in the inn, that is next level trauma, because now you can't treat people, you can't take care of people. But apart from just COVID patients, we're also talking about other patients. At this point, as your healthcare physician, what level, what triggers that you see? At this point where we are, what triggers do you see that needs to be pulled? And I know that's probably tough for you, but just as a physician, what triggers would you pull at this point, Linwood?
Right now, all the triggers should be pulled. Our hospital facilities are overrun with this. Remember, COVID is one aspect of health. People still getting out of stuff, But if all these beds are being taken up by people who have COVID and they need to be in hospital, the people with heart attack, strokes, uncontrolled diabetes, bronchopneumonias, etc., who still need to be hospitalized, they are competing for the same bed space. And so the triggers, we see people on porches at Princess Margaret Hospital, being nursed in the back room. It is not something that the hospital was designed to do. We were designed as a hospital facility, not inpatients, but nurse patients on the wards and deal with acute trauma and emergencies in the ER. The ER is now a ward on its own, as well as still dealing with acute onset emergencies and trauma. So the triggers should have been pulled long time ago. We need to increase our capacity, and that is not something that's done overnight. Luckily, we have Samaritan's Purse who's assisting with some field hospitals and clinic facilities, but we have to try flatten this COVID curve to allow for the beds to be used for persons who have other chronic non-communicable diseases that need the space, they need in hospital care to have a good outcome. But these beds, these very precious and resources are being used for COVID patients, and not blaming the COVID patients because they got COVID, but we have to do more to avoid getting COVID, to avoid from being hospitalized, and there are ways in which we can do that. So the triggers right now, we need to pull the triggers. Are we putting the white flag and surrendering? No, we're not. We're going to fight this thing with all the resources available. The Ministry of Health made some announcements that I'm happy to hear about. the bringing in of healthcare workers and bringing in the retired workers to come back to work. And they still have a lot of utility, a lot to offer in their field. And then the field hospitals, I'm happy that the government's taking this approach. But we need to be more aggressive. We need to seek high and low. We need to use even government buildings. I had made some suggestions some time ago, but it didn't. Government saw a different direction from what I saw. But I thought that if we use some of these things, that we could help shore up our bed space.
Yeah, in terms of capacity, what would be the biggest request of physicians, of nurses, of those in healthcare? The biggest request would be what at this point, you think, from what you
to get our capacity up?
Yeah.
I'm going to say something that may come with a lot of controversy, but that's fine. I'm not a stranger to controversy. During the onset of COVID, we have had the cruise ship industry that went basically crashing. Mm-hmm. There were countless amount of ships dormant, no activity, no economic generation, nothing. Just spending money on maintenance because the ship has to be maintained. I had proposed that we use one of those ships, we bring them into Nassau Harbor, offshore, and we retrofit it with negative pressure systems to minimize and spread. And we quarantine patients there. This is true quarantine because they're on the boat now. They'll be ferried to this boat. They can just come off as they want to, and try to use this as a step down facility for persons who are sick but not ICU sick, who could be nursed in this area, and in turn, the government could give some tax concessions to these ships for future times, since we have limited cash reserves. We hold reserves for our social policy to help people who need it during this COVID time, and just give these cruise ships some form of tax exemption in the future. The employees, the healthcare workers, the security, it could be Royal Bahamas Defense Force, police force, whoever, could be ferrying on a daily basis on a shift system and stay there, and when the shift change, ferry it out with supplies and medical stuff, and use this area. That's 2,000 rooms right there on one cruise ship. People say, "Oh, cruise ship are the nexus for the virus," because these regular cruise ships. I'm talking about retrofitting cruise ships with negative pressure systems to try to minimize on spread. I think it could work. I think we can't throw our hands up in the air and say, be unconventional, but it's better than not doing anything.
Yeah, Dr. Limmer Brown. So, in terms of the cost of something like that, that's an interesting idea. I haven't heard anyone say that before. I know we've talked about the hotel at one point, and I think after the hotel, Breezes decided it might have been too negative of a press thing for them to be seen or heard that their rooms were being used for quarantine space. But what would something like that cost for us? And because that would be the argument, the government can't afford anything. We got 18 beds. We're supposed to be grateful.
This is why I'm saying, in exchange for paying for the ships, we could give them future tax concessions. We still have the same medical personnel. We have to pay them anyhow wherever they work. We have the same security personnel. We have to pay them wherever they work. We have the same medical supplies. We have to pay for the hospital, for patients wherever the patients are. The only additional cost will perhaps be the cost of ferry these people to and from every day. But it'll be the same personnel, the same supplies that we're using now. And the only other thing, the equation is a ship which could be written off from tax exemptions for future sailing for these same ships that call on the Bahamas anyways, and the ferry system. So it would have generated a cost. I'm not naive to think it's going to be free, but it's certainly the cost. The cost benefits will certainly be leaning more on the benefit side, where more Bahamians should be saved, and it'd be afforded hospital care or inpatient care.
And the cost. I think one of the things too, and not just in the financial cost, but the cost of COVID is is also all of those persons that you mentioned who don't have COVID but need other medical help. And do we count those in the COVID deaths? No, we don't, right? So someone who needed dialysis, but they have to book an appointment, right? What happens if you miss the appointment? What happens, if it's too far down? How all of this affects us. And so going out of control is not the goal. It's not the way we want it to be. And you're suggesting that right away, one of the things is capacity. Do you believe that we're moving fast enough as a physician? Do you feel as if we're moving fast enough to resolve the issues of capacity? Or is it still lagging? Words are coming out, but the process is too slow. And I think I may have, did you get that one?
I didn't get all of it. Say the last part again.
All right. In terms of the process, do you believe that the process is moving fast enough in terms of the acquisition of beds, the acquisition of staff? Is that moving fast enough for where we need to be? Because I've heard others. Let me just ask you before I even put in any thoughts there. Is it moving fast enough as a physician in your estimation, this process of acquisition?
No, COVID is outpacing everything. That's certainly unique to the Bahamas. COVID is the rate of COVID infections is outpacing every hospital in the world, I believe. Yeah. In the Bahamas, can we do better? Of course, much, much better. Our acquisition process could be tedious, but those processes are put in place for checks and balances. I understand the nuances of it, but we're not in step with COVID in terms of pace. No, we're not. We lagging behind greatly. Hence the overrun hospital facilities. Hence the people on the porch. This is the evidence. That's why go by the hospital. You'll see the evidence of it being outpaced. But any of the hospitals, I challenge you to go to any of the hospitals and you'll see the evidence that COVID is outpacing it. So
how do we rein it in, Doc? How do we rein it? What can we do? What can we do? What do you suggest we do apart from? Is there any other option apart from social distancing? Because I think people try. I believe we as Bahamians really try to social distance, majority of us. But it's difficult when you're at work, it's difficult when you got to go to the store. It's difficult to some degree, even when you go to Hail Mummy and your brother lives there, whatever it is.
Right. And your brother goes about the street every day too.
Yeah.
So we have a number of tools in the toolbox, one of them being the vaccine, right? So I'll tell people, listen, consider the vaccine, make it a personal choice, look at the data you have, and it's undeniable that the vaccine is saving lives. It's undeniable, right? We have our reservations because of lack of data, et cetera, and that's fine, and that's all in the scientific process. But it's undeniable that the vaccine is saving lives, so we just have to make a personal choice. Do I want to get the vaccine? Do I want to risk the long-term side effects the vaccine could bring, or I should go for the self-gratification now? Or I should wait for or roll the dice and see what happens. So that's the choice we are faced with. I'm not pro-vaccine. I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm pro-choice. I believe the information given, the government, private sector should all do the good job and try to disseminate information that's understandable from trusted sources, and let the people make their decisions on which they want to do. I would not agree to force vaccination, but I would agree to a choice, make it a choice. And that choice depends on, when my patients call me, Doc, what should I do? I say, do you have hypertension? You have diabetes? Well, we know people with hypertension and diabetes, underlying illnesses, are more destined to get COVID or do poorly if they do get COVID. And I said, make that choice. If people with diabetes tend to have a higher mortality rate from COVID than people who don't get diabetes. Then the mortality rate of COVID is still 2.5% for those who got infected, and the infection rate is still 0.1%. But do you want to roll the dice? Or do you want to wait and see what happens in 10, 15 years from side effect from this vaccine? But the vaccine is certainly a tool in the toolbox, and I admonish any Bahamian who is contemplating getting how to fight COVID, to look at it, speak with a primary care provider, and have a candid conversation with them. Let them know your fears, and let the primary care provider sort of guide them with information. And that's the best I could suggest. But I'm not an advocate for forced vaccination or coercive vaccination.
Dr. Linwood Brown, thank you so much, Linwood. I appreciate you, my friend, and hopefully we get to do this again. Stay safe out there. I appreciate you.
You stay safe too.
Yeah, man, I'm home.
Stay safe, Bahamas, and follow the protocols. This is serious. This is real. Let's get our economy back running, but not at the expense of our health.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Special thanks to Dr. Linwood Brown. We'll be back right after this.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward, never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Special congratulations again. We are gold medal winners, y'all. Stevie Gardner doing his thing. And I've got joining me, actually the perfect person. There's a few perfect people. There would be no more perfect a person if it was Stevie himself, other than Stevie himself. So I've got joining me now. And we didn't plan this. We did not plan that Stevie, we knew the Olympics were happening. We just made sure that we were going to do this today. And then boom, Stevie goes and wins gold. And then I have joining me, friend, B3A's president, and now Free National Movement candidate for Fort Charlotte, my good buddy, Dramico Archer. Drew, how are you?
Hey, Nahaja, how are you?
I'm well, buddy.
Perfect planning means perfect planning sometimes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right on that. So he did it. Dramico Archer. Stevie Gardner is Speedy Stevie, has done it. He's won the world championships and he's gone ahead and won the Olympic gold medal. As a B3A president, where are you? What's going on right now in the B3As?
Nahaja, pure elation. I mean, when you think about 400,000 population of people being able to on the global stage is absolutely amazing for all of us. Stephen Gardner comes from a very small town, has been raised in Mars Island, and here they produced one of the best athletes in the world. I don't think that we can ask for more than that. I thought his competition was at the highest level. There was no compromising in the quality of performance in COVID. And so the Bahamas can stand over their chest as big and wide as can be, because I think that they've done an amazing job just producing the final. So we're excited about that.
We have some technical difficulties on your side, my friend. So you're kind of breaking in and out. And I'm going to ask my producer in the chat to send our private number so that you can call in studio, because I want us to definitely hear your audio.
Okay.
And you look a little better, but I figure the audio might be just a tad bit off, because I want us all to get exact. Say again?
Is that any better?
Well, I mean, you're still a little distorted. So, but definitely And I'm going to ask my producer to send the number for us. Wally, please send the number for me, because we want to get Dramico Archer's conversation here. And, B3A's president, the one and only Dramico Archer, joining us, and candidate for Fort Charlotte, new candidate for Fort Charlotte. And let me see if I can actually forward. All right, there you go. Can you see it in the chat there, Drew? And Wally, there you go. I'll send it to you. So take a look at your phone.
I'll
this is
right now.
Yeah, this is the power of the internet, where some days it'll make you look good and other days it'll make you look bad. But and as we wait for you to get on the line, because of course this is how things go some days, right? We have joining us Dramico Archer here, B3A's president. And hopefully you let me know, Drew, with a thumbs up when you're ready to go, once you're on the line there. So, what is expected and what's anticipated, especially now, Fort Charlotte, of course, okay, that's the number, the correct number there now. Fort Charlotte now has a new member, or a new candidate. She's about to say a new member. A new candidate, right, for the Free National Movement. And once you make that dial and let me know, Drew, once you get on and my producer lets me know you're on, then we'll get your audio back up real quick. But with Fort Charlotte now, Fort Charlotte is making that wave and that connection there. And I think that's what's going to be interesting to see how it works out. How will Mr. Archer bring his history, right? B3A president, of course, attorney, all of this as, to the forefront. All right. So, and let's take a quick break. Let's take a quick break and deal with this to see if we've got it sorted out, because I want to get Dramico Archer on with us and see how it goes. Okay, we're good to go. All right.
Here you go.
And I need you to turn down your laptop there for me, Drew. All right. So, Dramico Archer on the show with us. All right, Drew, tell me a bit now. Welcome to, and say it again, for those of us who missed it, what is the B3A's feeling now on Stevie Gardner's win?
The B3A's, the Bahamas, the people of the athletic community are so excited. I think that words couldn't describe it. In 2016, we won our very first gold medal. Not our very first, but the only gold medal of the game. And it's no different from what it felt like in 2016, except that Stephen Gardner, who's worked so hard over the years, the man who I believe would have won this year's Olympic Games 400-meter champion, has come into full form, and we see the fruit of that. So I'm incredibly excited for Stephen. I believe that when we talk about world leads, we have a different appreciation for just being one of the greatest. And he's proven that. I think that it tells the story of the Bahamas in such a full way that people just never could appreciate the value of sports and its contributions to the country. And I think that he's one of the flag bearers of the country that has put the Bahamas and continues to make the world proud of this very small country and the people of the Bahamas the very same way.
Yeah, the 4x4, the women's 4x4, of course, we didn't get out of the first round. What goes into making, we've come to expect, I think Bahamians expect to a certain degree that we will, show out a bit in the relays. That's what we've come kind of anticipating. The Golden Girls have put pressure on every group. Then you have the Golden Knights who showed up and surprised the world with Ramon Miller giving one of the best final leg finishes. And that was the 4x1, of course. We've shown up and shown out in 4x1s. Now you're talking about a 4x4. And wondering, was there a challenge with creating the team? Was there any challenges that we may have missed going into the Olympics when you guys set up at the B3A's the groups and the relay teams?
Nahaja, there are many dimensions to that question, right? I think that, number one, the Bahamas as a jurisdiction, we won our very first medal in a relay event, with the exception of Frank Weatherford and Pauline Davis. The eruption of track and field to the world has been through its relay prowess, so to speak. And so the country will always be looking forward to the presence of the Bahamas in relay duty. There's now a duality of interest when we talk now about relays, because when I sign a shoe contract, the shoe contract doesn't contemplate the participation of my participation in a relay. My payday comes from an individual event, and so a greater priority is now placed on individual events rather than relay duty. And when you look at that conflict, people don't appreciate how far-reaching that might go in terms of self-preservation. And so there will always be that compromise. I can tell you that I think that the Bahamas would have won gold medal in the mixed relay. But the mixed relay conflicts with the open events of Shawnee Miller and Stephen Gardner. So that when you talk about gold medal performances, we need world leads to be there. And they simply couldn't be there because of their overarching obligations to their shoe sponsors and their personal shoe contracts. And so it's a bittersweet time for us. I believe that the time is now for us to begin growing a new cohort of runners, sprinters, and quarter milers to make up the relay pool and to deepen our relay pool. But as it stands now, while I believe that we're making significant advancements in our sport, I still don't think that we've reached the optimum level where we can no longer depend on a handful of athletes to carry the entire team.
Yeah. Well, one of the things also, knowing that Stevie came from small island, Moores Island in Abaco. Moores Island is very excited, very proud of their Stephen Gardner, as they should be. One question that has come up since this morning is, are there more Stevies? Are there more Shawnees? Are there more Anthoniques, Toniques, etc.? How do we pull that out into the forefront, considering how small we are and we're world beaters? We're a small country and we are winning gold.
I can tell you that the B3A often has administrative challenges, and it's always because it's a professional environment and we still operate at an amateur level to the extent, meaning that we just don't have full-time employment working in federations. But I tip my hat off to the entire track and field community. I think that when you do the count, we have well in excess of 1,000 young people training each day. And so I would say continue doing what we've always been doing. We continue to produce athletes because we have a feeder program that's second to none. And per capita, you'd find that the Bahamas' track and field program is probably one of the leading programs in the world. And it's a testament to the size of our population and the per capita in terms the numbers of world-class athletes that we produce on an annual basis, and the amount of scholarships that we produce, going to some of the finest universities in the world. And so we've always represented ourselves well. And I commend the coaching community of track and field.
Now let's switch, because I have tons of other questions for you, Drew. This whole Olympics thing, there's controversy that has happened. But I also know that we're on a limited time and I want to get to some other things as well.
Sure.
So you got to come back, because you can't just slip in here and I don't ask what the heck happened.
But I don't run away. I don't run away from the questions.
All right, well then let's go there. Then let's do that real quick before we go.
All right.
Before we switch, what happened? What happened in Tokyo? Why do we have a coach that came back? What was this controversy going on with Anthony Strawn and the BOC? What's going on?
Well, it's the coach. I think he lands sometime today, and so we've not gotten the full report. A lot happened.
And so I'm still waiting on that report from not only the coach, but the second vice president of our federation. But from where I sit, we've always had an unwritten rule on our federation as a matter of custom that when we talk about the selection of a team, we look at not just the top qualifiers, but qualifiers who go head-to-head competition. Like the United States and like Jamaica and other leading track and field member federations, the best way to determine the most suitable candidate to compete in any event is head-to-head competition. And at our trials or our nationals, there were only 2 of the 4 qualifiers who went head-to-head. That was Shawnee and Antonique, both establishing the qualifying standard of the Olympic Games. The other 2, Tania and Brianne, because they did not perform at the nationals, we said to determine the 3rd position would be to have a runoff. Those were the recommendations that were put to the BOC. They agreed that we would have carriage over the team selection, and we submitted that in time. We had a 9 o'clock deadline on July 8th, and very specifically, we have a date stamp of 8:50 when we would have submitted our recommendations to the BOC. Subsequently, the BOC indicated that they would turn it over to the management team in the exercise of its own discretion. We said, well, this was a matter for the administration of the BOC and the B3As, since we were within time, and our recommendations ought to stand. So that became, I think that there was an impasse there, and as a result, I think a lot of things happened that could have been avoided. And one of the things that could have been avoided, as you know, in the 200 meters, Tania, whose name was submitted, withdrew because of an injury. I believe that if we had the runoff, a lot of that would have been discovered in time to then be able to put Brianne in place so that we would have had a complement of 3 women competing in the 200 meters as opposed to just 2. But that is really the summary of the discussion. There was a lot of ventilation back and forth about what should have happened and how things could have been done differently. I think that we have a symbiotic relationship, whether it is in present form, but it's something that we must continue to achieve because one cannot exist without the other. And I think that we need to figure out once and for all how that can be done, and perhaps reducing it into a binding agreement or contract may be the way forward moving after this dispensation of the Olympic Games.
And I can't wait till you get the following report, but I appreciate that what you shared here with us, Jamiko Archer, B3A's president. Well, now let's switch gears, right? Let's switch gears. You are now, Jamiko, my good friend, B3A's president, known you a little while now, moving from strength to strength. You're going into politics, my boy. And I'll tell you what, this is not far-fetched because if you were dealing anything in sports, and in particular in the B3As, you know about fire. You know about fire. You know about controversy. You know about elections. You know about count it again. You know about all of these things. But now why the move? Why this move? This is the next level. Why this move for you?
To give a response sometimes sounds very trite or, just a banal response, right? But all I can say is that I'm moved by a greater power. It wasn't something that I had contemplated, but the opportunity was presented to me. And how do you say no? If anyone knows Jamiko Archer, they would tell you, I believe, that I've always been committed to helping young people and to helping people generally. I've always been committed to the advancement of Bahamians. And, one of my greatest joys as president of the B3As is to be able to go to my office, and my office is really the track, and to be able to learn the athletes by their name and to follow their progress. And I believe that translates into what I think politicians should do. I believe that a lot of what many complain about is that thing that I'm most inspired by. The stories that I hear on a daily basis when I go from house to house, and this unending willingness to be able to make a difference. And I believe that Port Charlotte is a constituency that allows me to do that in its fullest form. You would know that Port Charlotte is a very mixed community, and a community that I can relate to only because I can share many of those experiences from those persons who are in at-risk environments to those people who aspire to be a whole lot more than what they were before. And at the end of the day, Nahaja, I think everyone wants to be middle class. And I think that it's incumbent upon leaders to ensure that we can provide the best environment for them. And I don't take that lightly. A lot of people look at leadership in a very whimsical way. Today I'm with you, tomorrow I'm not with you. And it's about what I can do for you. And if I can't do anything for you, then I'm with you. I think that the maturity level of our politics starts with how we change the mindset of communities. And those communities must be assured that they have good representation. And the thing that I've discovered more than anything else in my walk, in my canvassing, is that all people want is for you to be able to listen to them and to be able to create a pathway. It isn't always giving them money, that makes that difference. It's really taking the time and listening and showing that you care, particularly in those distressed communities where the only thing that the young boys are asking for is a second chance. And I believe that we are a product of our own environment, Nahaja. And the thing that I want most to do is to be able to provide access.
One of the things.
Go ahead.
Sorry, finish your thought there. My apologies.
No, I think I can go on and on. I'm just filled with so much to share. But I think that if you ask more pointed questions, I can give you more specific responses.
Yeah. One of the things, we're just tuning in, Jermico Archer here, president of the B3As and now candidate for the Free National Movement for Fort Charlotte. You are already being brought into the spotlight by by our Prime Minister, right? In the House of Assembly, mentioning your name when it comes to culture, comes to Junkanoo, stuff like that. What do you see your role as when you enter into government? What do you see your role as? Because already there is some sort of picture painted, that some sort of idea that you will have some sort of instrumental role if this administration is so honored and fortunate and blessed to serve again.
It's quite an open-ended discussion. I've always been the advocate of defining what is really Bahamian. And I think that the cultural expression of our country is just so rich and so untapped in a commercial sense, but also in an intrinsically cultural sense, where we must identify with who we are first. And so when you ask me, what do I intend to do? I think that there has to be a learning experience where people really discover what being a Bahamian is all about, not just in the form of Junkanoo, but our music should be better exploited. I think that we should be able to create a pathway where we can engage the world in this exchange, this wonderful exchange. And I remember a Junkanoo group going to the Smithsonian Festival. And out there, it created a different dimension to what culture is all about. From the bush tea that we drink to the food that we eat, the world must know more about what that experience is. But before that happens, I think that there has to be an overlapping and an integration of what we teach in the classroom about what is Bahamian, what we share within our social settings, that Bahamian music should be something that we celebrate. Just like the Jamaicans celebrate reggae and how the Trinidadians celebrate carnival. If you talk about culture, I think the Junkanoo Carnival should be just scrapped altogether. Not that we should have no part in it, but our definition of who we are as a people should be based on something that's Bahamian and truly Bahamian. And so I like the idea of Junkanoo Carnival, but take Carnival out of it, downsize the costumes, engage the community a lot differently, and engage the world so that it can be more participatory. So culture is about sharing. But before we can share culture, we need to understand culture. And that's by engaging the brightest minds and the youngest people in the world that the Bahamians can speak to.
I like it. And I'm a big believer that we got to get our culture, our youth sports and culture into another level in country. So it sounds like my good friend Dramico Archer going to be the new Minister of Sports.
No, I am preempting nothing. I need to win first. but
sounds like if y'all win again.
I think that it's a tantalizing thought because more than anything else, I think that this orange and yellow industry is an industry that entertainers and actors and actresses and artists are pregnant to share. And we need to create a pathway just for that. And the world is looking for something of the Bahamas beyond just sunshine and sea. I think that we have so much more to offer. Yeah. And I think that when you consider entertainment and sports, which are all laced into what I call aspects of Bahamian culture, I think that the Bahamas really has a model that can be shared and an economy that is diversified by those new emphasis. And that's what I'm excited about.
Dramico Archer, president of the B3As and now F&M candidate for Fort Charlotte. Before I let you go, Drew, one question someone, a texter sent in. We did not finish the 4x4. What happened? Folks want to know, did something happen to Anthony? We did not finish that last leg.
The report that I've received is that Anthony had been nursing a knee injury, and she thought that the injury was severe such that it would cause her to stop running, and to preserve the knee, she decided to withdraw.
Thank you so much, Dramico Archer. I know, my friend, you can handle the heat, but boy, there's going to be a hot summer.
Feel the fire.
Dramico Archer, thank you so much, buddy. F&M candidate for the lovely Fort Charlotte. Thank you so much. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. When we come back, we're going to have Mr. Matt Aubrey joining us, Executive Director for the Organization for Responsible Government. Let's talk about some stuff. Matt's on the news, man. Matt is coming back on fire. We'll be back right after.
Thank you, Nahaja.
Of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Enjoy an elevated mobile experience with BTC, giving you
unlimited talk for the best conversations, unlimited data for all your online fun,
and unlimited roaming to stay connected while overseas.
For just $50 per line.
Unlock unlimited mobile talk, data, and roaming when you sign up for BTC Superfast Fiber Internet with speed starting at 100 megabits per second. Enjoy more great savings and value. Upgrade or sign up today. Visit any BTC store or btcbahamas.com. Conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, my good friend. I got a lot of good friends. You notice how I say that a lot? I got a lot of good friends, people I like. Matt Aubrey, Executive Director for Org, joining us. Matt, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks so much. It's been a while, but I am absolutely honored to be on that list of good friends. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. You're on the list. You're on the list. Matt, it's so good. It's so good to see you, man. You look refreshed. I'm glad you're back and safe, and your family, they're all good. So it's good to see you. We have, and the reason why I asked you to join me today on the show was, of course, the latest bit of information in the news. And one of the things that I love about Org is that you guys are consistently bringing organized positions before the country and the government. Organized activism, that's what I would call it. But I don't know if you guys call yourselves activists, but I call it that. It's an organized level of activism in a nonprofit that is saying, hey, these are the issues fundamentally that we need to, as a country, to resolve. And just the other day, of course, there was a report which talked about our susceptibility to corruption, right? I think in 2020, last year, and the index, we were not we moved from, we were far from the least corrupt Caribbean island. That's what we got, right?
Well,
what was it last year?
Right. So last year, I think we actually lost a point, and I think Barbados took the spot. Historically, we've kind of stood out as with the distinction in the Transparency International Index as the least corrupt country in the Caribbean, and it is important to understand that's a global index. So we come out towards the top of the list, but we're also in a space where we're being evaluated against places like South Sudan and Democratic Republic of Congo and things like that. But there was probably more appropriately, there was a study in 2019, which was a regional focus, a barometer that Lamar Campbell and the folks over at Citizens for Better Bahamas really partnered with Transparency International on. And that revealed some more specific regional trends that we've talked a lot about. And it talked, I think one of the things it reinforced, and one indicator was that the Bahamas came out as in the Caribbean, the place where people are more likely to pay a bribe without being asked. So that talks about the fact that there's an ingrained component of this in our culture that we just anticipate that's the way it is. And it comes from lots of different spaces. But when you think about the report that just came out from the U.S. on the investment climate in the Bahamas, it says something, right? It speaks about a perception of the way things are in the Bahamas, which may not necessarily be as directly aligned with what's happening on the ground, but it speaks to the danger of what that perception brings. Because a partner like the U.S. looks and says, "Look, this seems to be understood that this level of corruption, even though it may not be as drastic as other spaces, is seen as status quo." And in a time post-COVID, we can't afford that, right? We need every opportunity. We need every local business person to be able to do what they need to do to jumpstart and contribute to the economy. We need the empowerment to ensure we're the most competitive, attractive place for that right foreign direct investment, because they want to ensure that they don't have a lot extra to spend, so they want to make sure that they don't have to apply a lot of it to graft, or that inefficiency in government is what we're known for. So there have been a tremendous amount of things that this administration and the past administration have done to kind of speak to, how do we reduce the capacity for corruption, moving towards electronic means, passing a procurement law that speaks to, in theory, an electronic bidding process with very clear and open results. These are great things, but without movement on some of the bigger legislative items that were put forward back in 2017, the Integrity Commission bill that would have set up an independent space to receive any claims of corruption, the Ombudsman, which was set up as really a people's or businessmen's advocate to ensure that any maladministration is vetted out. These are big statements to entities like the U.S. or other international or institutional partners, that this is something that the Bahamas is not going to leave as is, that we really are committed to this kind of change. And some of we've seen it, the concerns related to conflict of interest. We've seen concerns related to people's roles and, the ministers' and roles of involvement in certain components or bidding practices that are not, always adhered to. These are things that are working to our detriment. They reduce our strength as a potential place for investment. They reduce our reputation. And so what we've done, the Organization for Responsible Governance and groups like the Chamber and the Citizens for Better Bahamas and Civil Society Bahamas, all of these groups have partnered in different ways to try and promote the concept of integrity, of doing the right thing. And we all agree, right? We all agree that at the highest level, no elected official or appointed official should be utilizing power to benefit themselves or their families or their friends or for any personal components. But what we also realize is this ingrained culture, it starts with all of us. It starts at the citizen level. It starts at the person who only has an hour for lunch and they got to go and get something from road traffic, or they got to get something from the passport office, and they know that a boss is going to get on their backs if they don't come back in time. Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we find out who related to in that office, because that might move us in front of the line, or why don't we pay a little lunch money to kind of accelerate the process. But what we don't see is that contributes to this environment. That contributes to a culture where our government is not as effective or as efficient. Our services are more apt to be a pay-to-play environment. And when we have little instances of this, right, one or two instances, it bleeds into this mistrust. It increases our reputation. So our best opportunity in our estimation, in Org's estimation, is to be as above board and as broad stroke in this approach. So legislation that speaks about an independent space where any concerns of corruption can be brought forward without political agenda. Mm-hmm. Is a huge statement about what we believe and what we want this country to be. So we've been encouraging for since 2017 the furtherance of this legislation, and we really are encouraging citizens at this stage to speak to those people that are trying to get your vote right now, those that are coming out and campaigning, to speak to those people you've elected, and make sure that this is a key priority before the next election, that it gets its due in the House of Assembly, that it gets debated, and that it gets put forward and then enacted, if even possible within that, because it does a lot for us positively.
Matt Aubrey here, Executive Director for the Organization for Responsible Governance. Matt, so let me ask you this. One of the things, because there were a lot of things that were presented in this report, how important is transparency? How important is the way we look when it comes to our ranking and corruption, to our foreign direct investment model, right? Because many have said, well, FDI is always up. Are we attracting the wrong type of foreign direct investors if our index is up? Like, what does this say about it?
So we want, I had the privilege of serving with a number of talented folks on the Economic Recovery Committee. And what was very clear in our deliberations is that we want the best of class, that going forward, we realize our future is not in, getting involved with, any who come. We really need, you benefit long-term by making sure that you make the right decisions and the right opportunities at the right time with the right people. And once done, then you don't have weird scenarios where somebody who isn't authorized is signing something or decisions that are not seen as to the betterment of the Bahamian people or our environment or our economy, because they were a good short-term investment, or we didn't have other opportunities. So creating the right platform is crucial, and transparency and accountability, although these are terms we talk about in very lofty ways, they really come down to the very concrete ways we deal with each other and that we expect out of government. So this becomes this report, which again, cites things that have yet to be fully determined or declared, were they a true instance of corruption or a true instance of conflict of interest. Because they get caught into the political rhetoric, they create static that prevents us from being seen as the best place for you to come and invest your funds. Or more importantly, I think in some ways, a place where our local businesses have every opportunity that somebody else might. It's not a few folks that can benefit, but it's that we know that in a time like this, what we saw is that the more local businesses that are successful in the broadest way possible, the better off we're going to be. That's more jobs. That's more sustainability in our family islands. That's more creation of success with our youth and our small businesses can really be the heart of our economy, and then the foreign direct investment becomes cream on top of the cake. So I think that model requires that we push forward on issues that have been longstanding ones, and transparency and accountability and openness in governance are just those issues. So corruption, and even again, just the perception of corruption is destructive. We know it takes money out of our economy. We know that it removes efficiency and effectiveness in government, so that 12% that people now have even less money to be able to be paying. You want to get the best out of that for our government services. We don't want an environment where the person that has a little side business, getting people through the line, is doing better than that dedicated civil servant that has worked so hard to maintain integrity, but is not able to do the best at their job because somebody else is subverting the system. So we got to push for that high level of standard, right?
Yeah. How does Transparency International collect its data? Like, how do we know that what they are presenting? I mean, they're telling the world this is right. They're creating this index for all of these countries. But how are they getting this information?
So and again, to be clear, it's a perception index, right? So they're not going to say, how many convictions or how many reports or how many instances were there. They're going and saying, let's disseminate it to a pool of private sector, government officials. Let's reach out to community-based levels, NPO partners, and let's gather information on how people perceive things are happening. And there's a risk in that, right? Because the perception here in the Bahamas is broken, so I got to go around the system because that's just the way it is. Yeah. Well, we need to change that, right? We need to change that perception because it breaks down to a loss of opportunity. It breaks down to the small businessman being challenged because they don't feel like they have enough money to pay their way to the top. Or it means that, procurement is not being done in the clearest way possible so that we're not getting the biggest bang for our government dollars, which is what we need at this point. We don't have extra, right? We've borrowed as much as probably we can borrow. We don't have extra in the till, so we got to really make what we have work in the best way. So looking at this perception report, looking at reports like the U.S., these are good gauges to say how are we seen in the region? How are we seen by others? And by no means are we the worst offenders. Corruption happens everywhere. Sure, that's the easy way to say, well, it's always going to happen, but it can happen less, and we can create less of an opportunity. And probably more important, we can build a culture here in the Bahamas that prides doing the right thing because it makes sense. Not necessarily always, not just because morally it makes sense, but because economically and socially it makes sense. It creates a more equal playing field and more equal opportunity.
Yeah, and I think how you change that culture, it has to start from the top down, right? It has to filter down. We can't tell you.
It actually goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
If we create citizens that call out and say, you know what, I'm just going to have to stand in this line, or I'm going to resist the guy that comes around and says, I see you waiting here. You want a little we have to create that, no
really
place
just say no.
Culture.
Just say no, right?
Right, because then you
and then that guy's going to go off to lunch, Matt. The guy's going to leave me standing there, and he's going to go to lunch, and they're going to have one teller for 60 people.
And it's going to hurt before it gets better. But if we collectively get all of ourselves saying we're committed to do the right thing because the Bahamas needs that reputation, then we don't tolerate folks at a certain level. And we then push for legislation like the Integrity Commission Bill. This was tabled by the government in 2017. We're now almost 2,000 days later. It's never been moved. So we need to call for the ombudsman, again, this is the advocate for the people. So all our concerns about government doesn't hear me or I'm not getting the best service, that shouldn't be the way we tend to think about it. There are some great public servants. There are some phenomenally dedicated folks in government that have been doing the right thing for a long time, but they're not getting the attention, right? We're getting the attention on the people that are walking away, the people that are, we need to hold the government accountable, but we also need entities like an independent integrity commission or an ombudsman or the fully enacted procurement act as it was envisioned with electronic submissions and open bids. All of these things go in complement to some of the stuff that's already been done. We can do this. This can happen, but it requires all of us saying, we're going to have to suck it up a little bit now, but we're also going to have to be very clear about what we think our priorities are.
One of the things that was said within the Transparency International's report is the procurement process also remains susceptible to corruption as it contains no requirements to engage in open public tenders, although the government routinely did so. And that's always been a concern, the process of tendering, right? And one of the things they also mentioned was patronage, right? And in essence, cronyism to some degree, where they're, making these intimations that those who align with are favored. I think for me, the disappointing part of it all is that we have things that are on the table. Like when we talk about the Freedom of Information Act, just one thing that has been kicked down the can from successive administrations. I don't even know really, Matt, you'll tell me, does it really exist today or what is it?
Well, this is what makes us the unpopular person at the party sometimes, is we really focus on the long term. So often we're called Pollyanna, but the reality is we started our organization in 2015. And with the goal that there were some longstanding issues, administration after administration, that needed to be addressed, and accountable governance and transparency were key. But the first thing off the blocks was freedom of information, and there were groups like Save the Bays and Citizens for Better Bahamas, and just groups, environmental groups like Brief, that have been fighting for this for a long time. And we kind of came in and helped to bring a coalition together and see it through. But in that time, it has moved forward. It has not moved forward as rapidly as it needed to, but it has moved. And when we've talked to other international groups, a movement of 3 to 5 years is not that unusual. So where we are now is we have a named information commissioner. That took a long time. We have a deputy commissioner who was there when the original consultations were happening. So he has some consistency of the process, Mr. Miller, rather. And through that process, where we start to see is they actually even have a Facebook. If you look at the FOI unit on Facebook, for the last couple of weeks, you see maybe even a month, you're seeing information that's going out that's encouraging folks. Hey, look at be aware of what freedom of information is. Org, we've already committed to working with them, and this becomes that challenge of getting information from government to how we align to help the public education. We're going to be doing some sessions come the end of the summer into September around how do you access freedom of information? What are the benefits of freedom of information? Because we want to ensure that this law that we pushed and everybody's advocated for doesn't just sit on the shelf, and that it needs to be pushed forward and enforced. So there needs to be an active process, and engaged citizens are the key. Having citizens that don't just say, hey, you know what, I've given up on this administration, I'm waiting until the next one comes in. It can't stop. We can't just bring one group in or re-bring another group in and say, okay, now it's going to happen. Right. We have to be constantly at the wheel, talking about it, making folks know that this is a priority, which honestly is a very hard thing to do in a post-Dorian, in a COVID environment where many of your basic issues are challenged, right?
And this is when it's the most important, though, because this is when a lot of things tend to happen quickly because of emergencies, right? When if my issue is I hear about and I listen to this transparency and the perception of corruption, and many Bahamians will say the perceived corruption is because corruption exists, right? and that it is rancid, it's rampant and rancid in this country. So many don't believe or trust even the process of large sums of money falling into the hands of government. So if there was ever a time when we needed more transparency and accountability, is in times of crisis, because times of crisis can make some people very wealthy. There's a lot of transferring of funds, and I wonder. Let's go to something else, the Fiscal Responsibility Act. In times like this, Matt, what would the Fiscal Responsibility Act, or should it be doing in times when you are moving tons of money and stuff like that?
Right. And so the Fiscal Responsibility Bill, which was one of the concerns of its critics, was that what happens when bad things happen, or what happens when hurricanes happen, and the reality is it has stipulations in there of what you're supposed to do, and that you can move away from the targets, but you have to return to them in a period of time. And now, again, that requires two things. It requires a government that follows the law to the letter, but it also requires attention and observation by the citizen. It requires that. The Ministry of Finance has actually done a pretty good job adhering to those original schedules, but there was discussion about, there was supposed to be a very active fiscal responsibility committee that was to be, provide their feedback and their insights. And we haven't necessarily seen what they've done or where they're at, and that lack of openness, it leaves us vulnerable. Because in one instance, they could be doing exactly what they're supposed to. But if there's not a public loop, if there's not a sharing of that information, and if the public isn't been primed and prepared to be able to receive that information and understand what it means, well, then something's missing. And within that space, if you're building a wall, and that's what we're trying to do, we're trying to build a wall that shores up the Bahamas to make sure that we're using our resources effectively, and that they're to the interest of the Bahamian people and the Bahamian land, then you can't just build part of it. You've got to build all of it. And you got to make sure that all those pieces are in place. And that's hard to do if you don't have the access and feedback on a regular basis. So that culture we talk about of integrity, it not only starts with we have to make sure we do the right thing, but it also talks about we have to build some level of communication and trust that is easy and ongoing, so that even those that are most convinced that things aren't going to work, and they never will because they've been doing this for 40 years, we have to have evidence to say, okay, well, here's an example of how that can work. When you talk about times of crisis, and this is what I so value about you, Nahaja, you always are able to say quite succinctly what we're trying to get to. That's why we lean on you a couple of times now for our messaging, because I can say it way too long and you can say it in a much shorter time. Is that we've got to get beyond the belief that it won't work. Like, we've got to get into an open space where we renew our pledge, because we don't have any other alternative, right? The plane is coming down. We need it to level off and then go forward. Yeah. We don't want to find ourselves in a place where our economy is in the hands of somebody else. You want to make sure that we control that, but that's now going to require every person to say, what do we need? We need education. We need local economic development. We need clear and accountable and open governance. The Integrity Commission bill is a step towards that. The enactment of the Freedom of Information, the full enactment, is a step towards that. Making sure that the Fiscal Responsibility Bill continues and drives, and we meet and we drive those debt management processes back, is essential. And there was a very, there's been debt management discussions that have happened both from the opposition and from the government. How many folks have had a chance to really read that and understand what does that mean? And do they get that, like, the 12 cents out of every dollar you put in, most of that is going towards paying off a debt that you won't necessarily have seen the benefit from. So how do we think about using our own money in a very short way? It's got to be by getting involved. We've actually launched this as the year of citizen engagement, year of citizen engagement, and we want people to get involved. It requires effort. It can't just happen automatically.
Matt Aubrey, Executive Director for ORG. Thank you so much, Matt. We have to do this again. Thank you for the time, my friend.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
All right. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja, Black Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Thanks to all of my guests. It was a great day. Special thanks again. And congratulations to Stevie Gardner. On Friday morning, Shawnee Miller-Weibo will be running her race, which I believe will be another gold. Everyone, take care. See you tomorrow. We're out.